going to my mom's house today, so let's make some flaky buttermilk biscuits with caramelized onions, Gruyère cheese, and rosemary. Starting with our dry ingredients, we have some flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, and some sugar. Next, I'm going to be cutting up some butter. And then I'll toss it around the flour mixture. And using my fingertips, I'm going to be pressing in the butter with the flour. So now we can see that we have varying sized pieces of the butter in the flour mixture. So we have our butter and our flour mixed up together, and the next step is actually something that I do with my pastry dough as well. Before I add the buttermilk, we're going to put this in the freezer to get nice and cold while I work on the caramelized onions. So I have 2 large onions that I'm going to be cutting up, and then I'm just going to be making these little half rings. And as you can probably tell, I'm not the best cutter, but it's okay. We have our onions, and I know it looks like a lot, but of course when we caramelize them, it'll cook down significantly. So for the actual cooking process, I like to add some olive oil, and then a little bit of butter. So now with our oil heated up, we can add our onions, and I like adding some salt, and then some pepper. So I know the general rule of thumb with caramelized onions is you're supposed to cook them low and slow. However, I'm incredibly impatient, so we're going to see how long it takes. So we're just going to keep them in a single layer and just stir occasionally, but for the most part, they're just going to sit like this. So it's been about 20 minutes, and honestly, this looks pretty good for me. So now I'm going to put them in a plate, and then I'll spread it out in an even layer, and this will help make it cool faster. So I just took the flour and butter mixture out of the freezer, so now we'll add in some buttermilk. I'll then add in some of the cooled caramelized onions. We then have some Gruyère cheese that we're going to grate in. And finally, I'm going to chop up some rosemary. I'm going to flour my surface. So we're going to flatten out into a rectangle, and then using my bench scraper, I'm going to cut into thirds. I'll stack the thirds on top of each other, and then we'll flatten it out again. And this will help create some of those layers. So now with it back in a rectangle, I'll do it again. So now I'll divide the dough into 3, and then I'll cut each third in half. So now we have 6 biscuits. While the oven's preheating, I'm going to put these in the freezer because, again, I want them to stay as cold as possible up until we actually bake them. Alright, so our oven's set to 425. I'm going to lower it to 400, and these will go in for about 20 minutes. So these are in the oven for about 22 minutes, and I did forget to say to make sure you add some buttermilk to the top before you put them in the oven. You can see the color came out really great, especially with the brown bottom. You can see some of those layers as well. And now for the best part, I get to eat one. You get the rosemary, the cheese, and then the caramelized onions is nice and jammy as well. I think these would make a perfect biscuit for a biscuit sandwich in the morning. I'll be sure to have the ingredients in the caption and the full recipe in my Substack soon.